Back from vacation. Couldn't post last week because I was away, but I did want to get this one in this week, even if it's a short week for me. So let's do the Hellas milestone analysis. I've already done Tharsis and Elysium. If you want a more detailed explanation on what the series is, go to the Tharsis one, but I'll do a quick summary. I basically made up 7 categories, and I'm gonna rate or explain each milestone in the Hellas map according to those categories. I'm basing this mostly on observations from games I played in Steam. So it's based on base game plus prelude most of the time. No Venus, no Turmoil, no colonies. And I'm not using any statistics to, get any of the things I say here. It's just my observation from playing games. So yeah, let's go into what each category is. First of all, the generation. That is basically when you see what generation you see this milestone go, usually, and what's the earliest you can see it go. Volatility is how easy it is to flip the award. So basically, if you're comfortable with the milestone, how likely is that someone just out of nowhere takes it from you. Deviation is how much you have to steer away from a good style of play to get it. Blockability is how much can other players do to keep you from getting the milestone. And then corporations, what corporations have an advantage for it. Capped means what's the things that limits the your ability to get the milestone. That could be money, it could be cards, it could be generations. And alignment, what strategies it aligns with best. So let's begin and let's talk about diversifier. Diversifier is actually a very fun award. I really like it. I like the how it works, and I usually see it go Gen 4 or 5. And it's funny how much people get stuck in that 7 tax and sometimes cannot get the 8th one, and that's because the rare tax can be a little hard to get, but it can go early, especially with preludes and corporations in the expansions that have more tax. You can see it go 3, even rarely 2, so I'm just gonna say 3 is usually the earliest. But yeah, it's an award often people go for because even though it goes late, most people are in some form competing for it, at least in 4 tags. And one important thing with this one is keep an eye on the rarer tags, so like Animal, Jovian City, that kind of thing. That's a big tell on who can get this milestone. Next up, Tactician. Tactician is a hard award to get. You can see it go early, but it's honestly the one I see go the least in this map. And it's probably because it's the hard, like 5 cards with requirements is actually pretty high. It really helps to have cards with maximum requirements, obviously, because those ones you can play early all the time. But yeah, I've seen 3, and also you can't get any help from your corporation or preludes, unlike in most other milestones. So it's purely on cards. So you need to play 5 cards with requirements. So it's really hard. I've seen it on 3 very rarely, but it's most often 5 or 6. Next up, Polar Explorer, and this one can be really fast. And so, well, the reason is obviously you can standard your project your way to it, and also tiles are really common early in the game, and you can get help from corporations and preludes like Tharsis, Philaris, and then Experimental Forest and the 2 city ones. So yeah, and 3 is not that high, so you're sitting at 2, the standard project is worth it to make sure you get a milestone in that case. So yeah, Polar Explorer, usually it's the one I see go the most in this map. Then Energizer. Energizer is rare, but there are some crazy combinations where it goes fast. For example, if you're Thorgate and you get to 4, you can standard break your way to it even though it's not great. Or if you're playing colonies, most people are gonna try to get it 3 anyway, and then you're just like a giant space mirror away. And then there's a couple of preludes that give you 2 or 3 energy, like power generation. So yeah, you do get an advantage from it with preludes. It is, I think, the second one I see taken the least. So I usually see like Diversifier and Polar Explorer for sure, and then Tactician, Energizer. You only see those if someone's not going Jovian. If someone's going Jovian, they can usually get Rim Settler, which brings me to Rim Settler. This one, it because it as you can see, it's the earliest one here, but that's because it's often just no one goes for it. But if someone goes for it, they can get there really fast. Wild Tech obviously does a lot of work here. But if you get a corporation like Saturn or Stormcraft or Septon Tribus, and then a prelude, then you're just one tag away. Which to keep a corporation like that, you're usually gonna have the Jovian tag. So basically, anyone going Jovian usually has 2 Jovian tags already in hand, and they just need the third one. This can go round 1 easily with like a corporation, a prelude, and like IO Mining Industries, which is a horrible card to get played on the first generation. And maybe you have to wait until the second generation to pay the extra 8, but yeah. Basically, if you see this award go, it'll go fast, but you often just don't see it go. And one thing about this, as you can see, the Hellas awards are really fast. So you can easily see them all gone by the third generation. You can see 2 gone in the first generation. I've seen that with usually Polar Explorer and Rim Settler, or early second generation, and then it's just everyone fighting for Diversifier, which is really fun. But yeah, in Hellas, I think it's my favorite milestone map because of that. So let's talk about volatility. So Diversifier is obviously high, and that's, I always say, a milestone is made up of 2 things: a thing and a number of that thing. And how many of that thing you can get in a single play is really important for volatility. So something like Tactician, you can only play 1 card with a requirement per play. But with Diversifier, you can play up to 3 tags in one, because that's the maximum in 1 card. And there are things like Olympus Conference, or even better, Ganymede Colony, that have 3 tags and can really help you flip this award. I emphasize Ganymede Colony because it has 2 more rare tags that are City and Jovian, whereas Olympus Conference has Science, Earth, and Building, which are 3 of the 4 most common ones, I think, the other one being Space. So yeah, and again, if you want to know how safe you are, I mean, first of all, you should always be trying to rush towards this and take it. But if you, for some reason, are on 7 and your opponent is on 1, and you're feeling a little comfortable, or let's not say 1, let's say you're 7, he's 3, or you're sitting on the 8 already and he's on 3, remember, he can take 4 straight actions, end of 1 turn, beginning of the next, and easily get 5 tags in 2 of those actions, or 3 of those actions with a couple of cards, and then take the milestone. But one thing that might help you is to check out, are the tags that he has already rare. If you see that he has like Building, Earth, and Space, you're probably safe. Something like he's not gonna play a lot of like City, Animal, Jovian combination of tags. So, but if you see like he already has Jovian and Space and Animal, then Olympus Conference jumps in for 3 to 6. So yeah, be very mindful of how rare the tags are. Alright, moving on, Tactician. So Tactician, the volatility is very low. Cards with requirements aren't that many, and there aren't that many that are good early. So obviously something like Arctic Algae is great, but pretty much everything else, it's kind of a hassle at the beginning of the game. As you get closer to the mid game, if and then you can play some like plant cards with requirements like grass or something like decomposers. then it becomes a little so you have to kind of know when at what value ranges the good cards are played. So that's, for example, 3 oceans, 5 oceans, that opens up a lot of plant cards, and then 14 and 16 temperature, and then 3% oxygen. I kind of keep those values in mind to see that opens up for more cards, but really tactician, really low volatility. Usually you know who's gonna take it at the beginning of the game. Polar Explorer, very high, so number is 3, and the thing can be done with 2 different standard projects. So, yeah, basically you can be at 0 and someone sitting at 3, and you can, I'm not recommending this, but you can place 3 cities and take a milestone with 4 straight actions and steal it. So this is basically always on high alert. As soon as you get to 3, you take it. If you get to 2, consider doing the standard project and taking it. If you are really struggling for other milestones. Energizer, very low. So, first of all, you don't always want to get to 6 energy early. You may want to get to 4 to use a bumper. You could get to 6 to use it as heat. And you want to get to 3 probably in colonies. But 6 early, I mean, you'd rather do heat if you're just going to use it as heat. So really the only reason to get to 6 is Energizer. And there are fortunately not that many cards that give you a lot of energy. There's Giant Space Mirror and Fusion Power that give you 3. And then there's like Quantum Extractor and Mass Converter, but you usually don't see those in the early game because of the science tag requirement. If someone's sitting on 5 science tags, then consider this highly volatile, but otherwise it isn't. So basically, if and there is a standard project that you can use to get it, but it's a really horrible play. Like, never do 2 standard projects and a milestone. It just really cripples your whole game. If you're Thorgate, maybe, because it's 6 cheaper. But even then, I wouldn't recommend it. I would absolutely recommend doing 1 for the last one. But yeah, I would say Energizer very low, and it's mostly because most people, there's really no use in getting there. Like Polar Explorer, where you can eventually gonna use the cities, you're investing early in it, but you're eventually gonna use it. Or Tactician, where you might, play a crappy plan tag for your 5th one, but at least it does give you the production. Energizer, you need a really efficient energy card like Giant Space Mirror plus 3 other, like maybe a Prelude for it to be volatile, and you rarely see 2 players going for this because there aren't that many, good energy cards. And finally, Rim Settler, I'm just gonna say low because you rarely just see 2 players going Jovian. Yeah, it's only 3, you can technically get a full flip, but first of all, Jovian cards are expensive. Second of all, usually you only see 1 player per game going Jovian, and also most Jovian cards are better late game. There's only a handful that are good early game, and so unless you're taking this with 2 wild tags and a Jovian, which is also rare because there are only 2 wild tags, Invasion plus Prelude, 3 when you count Septum Tribus, then yeah. So I would say this is low volatility. But yeah, if there are 2 Jovian players, then you do have to take this as soon as possible. Right, let's talk about Deviation. Diversifier is very low. Like, everyone's usually on 5 tags early. Unless you're doing a very, like, a plant heavy game or a Jovian space heavy game or something like that, you're usually going to see most people have a, building tag, earth tag, science tag, space tag. That's not too hard to get early. And then the weirder ones like the city, energy is actually also kind of common to have one. But yeah, city, animal, micro, plant, and Jovian, those are the rarer ones. And Venus if you're playing Venus. But yeah, most people will be sitting at 5, and then you only have to play maybe 1 card, at most 2 cards that aren't generally that expensive to get to 8. So yeah, very low deviation. It's always good to have tags, right? Tactician, I would say medium. Generally, if you're leaning into a plant strategy, this is why I say medium, you're gonna play a lot of cards with requirements, but you might have to play 1 or 2 that are inefficient that you would have otherwise not played. or maybe a science card. And I rarely find 5 cards with requirements that I want to play early. Maybe 3 often, but 5 rarely. So yeah, the last 2 usually require, and the thing about cards with requirement, they are a little more expensive than, what you can do with Diversifier. So yeah, I would say Tactician is medium. Also, fun fact, Dust Seals, which is a horrible card, is great for Tactician. So keep that in mind. Polar Explorer, medium, because yeah, you can probably get 2 tiles. But first of all, you're probably going to have to play a 3rd tile that you maybe wouldn't have played otherwise. And it fits with a standard product, it's very expensive. But also, the South Pole in Hellas is not great. The ocean is good. I don't like the heat spots, and there's a couple of 1 titanium spots, but that's it. So you're not only maybe placing an extra tile, but you're also placing an extra tile in a bad place that only allows for, the milestone itself and not picking up useful things. So yeah, I would say medium as well. Energizer, I'd say high. Like I said, no one wants 6 energy early unless you're using it for hit, and in that case, hit would be better. Unless you're in a crazy, physics complex scenario, which is, I've seen people lose with that early physics complex, because they just kill so much of their economy going for the 6 energy. And then you're usually going to use at least 1 standard project or a less efficient energy card. So yeah, I would say Energizer is high. I usually see people struggle to get here unless it's like available and you have the mass converter and you can play it, but that's rare. And Ring Settler, yeah, most of the time you have to play a very expensive Jovian way before you would normally want to. So that's why I would say high. It basically kills a turn to get Rim Settler. You might get lucky and get like the Wild Tag and, Saturn Systems, and then maybe you just play IO or Colonizer Trading Camp, and that's great. You've had 0, like very low deviation. But often, like, you start the game and you have 2 Jovian tags, and one is like a good one, one's like not so good, and you have to play it earlier than you want to get it. Okay, blockability. So for Diversifier, it's incredibly low. I would say don't even bother, because you can't even see what tags the player has in their hand. So you can look at what they have played and try to block a different one, but it's not worth it, because they might have it in their hand and then you're just blocking a tag which might not even be a good card, and you're losing some draft opportunity value. So don't even bother blocking this. It's not worth it. It's almost impossible to do effectively, and you're probably shooting yourself in the foot. Tactician, on the other hand, is very high. Not only can you block the cards, but you can also know which cards you have passed and know what parameters not to raise based on that. And then you're forcing your opponent to pay something to raise the parameter, then pay for the card, and then pay for the milestone. It's very expensive. So Tactician, I might even say, I'm not gonna say very high because of the max requirement cards that are harder to block. But yeah, you can block them in 2 different ways, and it's really easy to see when you can block them, because they're usually going to be stuck at 3 or something. Polar Explorer, it's low. So you can block the tags. You can block the tiles, like things like Nuclear Power, but you can't block the standard projects. The standard projects is not the ideal way to get this, but it's still a way. So you can basically make them pay a little higher, but you're never gonna fully stop them. Standard projects are just too hard to deal with. Energizer. Okay, so Energizer is a weird one because there's a standard project, but that's not the way you should get it. So you can never really block it. Like if they want to spend 66 cash to get the 6 energy, they're gonna. But again, like Polar Explorer is really inefficient, and I would never recommend buying 2 or more unless you're Thorgate, and then the 2 is still like ugh. So yeah, you can just block the good energy cards, and force him to pay a little more expensive for it. And then finally, I would say Range Settler is very high. If you see them sitting at 2 Jovian tags, you're gonna block every Jovian tag anyway. So this is really good because you're blocking both the milestone and their strategy with the same move, which is unlike Tactician, where you are probably blocking a bad card and letting them have like a card that you would have otherwise blocked. With Dream Settler, you would have done this anyway, and you're blocking them at the same time. The only thing here is 3 is a very low number, and they might have the third one in hand, but still, I would say this is a highly blockable one, and it's like right within your strategy to block it. Alright, let's talk about what corporations are good for each. So, start with Diversifier. So first of all, Septemtrivus, it starts with the wild tag. So here, I'm basically going to be looking at corporations with 2 tags. But Septemtrivus is better because it has a tag that just counts as a separate tag from every other tag in the game. So yeah, I think that's the best one. Next, Aphrodite, because Plant and Venus, of the corporations with 2 tags, Plants and Venus are probably the rarest combination, followed by Recyclone, which has Building and Microbe, which is, I mean, Microbe is maybe not that rare, but there just aren't that many good cards, so getting a Microbe tag early is really good. Then you have Arlight, has a really rare tag, for which the only early card you see play with animal tags is usually Pets and Ecological Zone, if you manage to place a greenery. So yeah, I think Arlight, just on the value of having that animal tag, is close to what Septemtrivus is, where you get just basically an additional tag. And then Factorum, it has 2 kind of common tags. Either doesn't have any advantage towards getting it, but they're just getting more benefit from playing cards that don't align with them for the tags. And then Point Luna, I mean, these tags are very common, but it has to, so I put it there. But yeah, Space on Earth, you're probably going to get a couple of those anyway with any corporation, so barely counts. But yeah, I think Septemtrivus and Aphrodite, the biggest advantage here. Alright, next up, Tactician. So I think there's basically 3 corporations to get an advantage, and those are Inventrix, MSI, and Celestic. So obviously with Inventrix and with MSI, you have the possibility to play things earlier, which means you can play your cards with requirements earlier, which means you have access to the good cards with requirements much earlier. And also they draw cards. And in the case of MSI, so I actually consider putting them before Inventrix because Venus cards have a lot of requirements. So drawing 3 Venus tags, it's actually going to give you some requirements. I put Inventrix ahead because when you consider global parameters, there's just more cards around that than Venus cards. But yeah, these 2 are close. And then Celestic, for the same reason I put them there, because floater cards often have requirements. So if you, yeah, drawing 2 extra cards that probably are going to get you 1 or 2 with requirements is really good for it. Polar Explorer. Okay, so anything that places a tiles is obviously good. I think Tharsis is probably the best one because it's also keeping other players from placing cities, and it really benefits from one of the standard products, and it's not so terrible. So I think Tharsis is the best. It gets 1 tile and keeps other players from placing cities, at least not greeneries, and it also just can get more out of the inefficient standard product play. After that, Philaris, similarly to Tharsis, they get a tile, and then they benefit from people placing close to them. So if they start taking space in the South Pole, people don't want to, also take space in the South Pole. Because Philaris benefits a lot from it, so I think these are the best 2, but I'm giving the edge to Tharsis. And then Factorum, I like Factorum because it just draws building tags, and building tags are where most of the tiles are. So yeah, I think it's a slight advantage. And then Arcadian Communities, because they can actually block the better spots in the South Pole and make it a lot worse for everyone else to take it there. Basically, I don't think they can ever like they would never get into a scenario where they block, all between the tiles all players play, and the ones they block, they just prevent you fully from getting the milestone. But they can make it really uncomfortable for everyone else. And Mining Guild, because they just like tiles, there's obviously no advantage to get that third one, but they just do 3 better, so they can play more inefficient tiles a little better. Okay, then Energizer, just Thorgate. And I've mentioned it a few times, but obviously, they got discount on every energy tag, and all energy tags do pretty much, with a couple of exceptions, is give you energy, and then they can also do the standard energy product a lot cheaper. So yeah, Thorgate, there's 2 that I consider putting here, Robinson Industries and Factorum, but they can't really use their ability to raise the energy for basically the last 4 spots. Well, in the case of Factorum, you can only do it if it's 0. So you can go from 0 to 1, and then you have to play 5 in energy cards, which is, this is not an advantage. And Robinson Industries, you might get 2 steps if you keep everything at 1. You're not gonna get the 3rd energy step with your ability. So I just don't think it's really worth mentioning, so it's just Thorgate. And finally, Rim Settler. Okay, so Seren Systems, easily the best one, because again, it has a Jovian tag, it benefits from playing Jovian tags, and it keeps other players from playing Jovian tags because it benefits from them playing Jovian tags. Second one, not Stormcraft, which is the other Jovian corporation, which should tell you what a piece of shit it is, but Septon Tribus. Why? Because they get the same thing. They both get a Jovian tag, basically. And Septon Tribus is better. And neither of them's really aligned with playing Jovian tags. So yeah, because Septon Tribus is a little better and easier to play with, I just think it's higher than Stormcraft. And the last 2, Phobolog. So Phobolog just has a lot of titanium, which means they can play the expensive Jovians a little easier. And Polyphemus. So Polyphemus, the best strategy for Polyphemus is to buy few very expensive cards that are good. And that's where most Jovians fall. They also start with 5 titanium and a ton of capital. So they're definitely the one with the least advantage, but they're often aligned with a Jovian strategy. So I would say they do have an advantage here. So let's talk about caps. And caps in Hellas are very simple and straightforward. The only cap for diversifier is obviously cards. Money is not usually a cap for it, because playing tax is cheap, and usually have a lot of options. Rarely you're gonna go, I can't get diversifier because I can't afford it. So yeah, it's just finding the 8 tags in different cards. Tactician, on the other hand, is capped mostly by cards. You have to find the 5 cards with requirements, but also by money, because a lot of cards with requirements cost a lot of money that you don't want to spend very early. Like adapted lichen, or something like design microorganisms. So yeah, it is mostly by cards, but also money. Polar Explorer. Okay, so this one's closer in cards and money, because you're usually gonna end up doing a standard project. But you probably, to get Polar Explorer, you probably want 2 tiles that are cheaper. Because getting 1 tile and doing 2 cities or city greenery is really not very great for them. Or you can do a greenery with plants or something like that. But yeah, I would say it's a bit of both, with plants being a 3rd factor if you can get there. And then Energizer again, cards and money, because you're usually gonna get at least 4 energy production with your cards or preludes, and then you're gonna use your money to play some inefficient energy card, or to do the double standard project, which is not great. So yeah, the cap is more the cards and the money, but you are capped by money. And then finally, Dream Settler. I know 3 Jovians are expensive, but The really hard thing is finding them. If you find them, you're gonna be able to play at least one per generation usually. Or otherwise, you probably shouldn't have gone for this in the first place. And finally, let's talk about the alignment. What strategies each of them are aligned with. Diversifier. I mean, Diversifier kind of aligns with everything, but I think the best thing that it aligns with is with an engine strategy that allows you to play more different, stacks. Because like with an engine strategy, you're probably gonna go on some science. You're gonna play some earth decks for production. You're gonna boost both of your mineral productions if you can, and if not, you're still gonna play some space and building tax some way or another. So yeah, engine is definitely the best. If you go for like a pure plant strategy, you're generally gonna have like the green tax, not so much the other tax. So yeah, engine is the best, but it's really like you can get it with anything if you get lucky. Tactician. So Tactician basically goes well with ground game because a lot of the cards with requirements are plant cards. So either rush or cities if you're getting plant production, and also with science because a lot of the science cards have requirements for other science decks. Like AI Central or Gene Repair. Yeah, I think those are the two best strategies that it aligns with. Polar Explorer, obviously with ground, both rush and cities. But keep in mind you can get lucky and get 3 tiles, like Nuke Zone, Lava Flows, and Restricted Area or something like that. And that isn't really any strategy. I mean, a little hit what I mentioned, but yeah. I like Diversifier. Pretty much anyone can get Polar Explorer. It's just a little better if you do like a city and gather enough plants for a greenery there, and then just place like Nuke Zone. Energizer. So obviously hit energy, that's the main thing. Or if you're going for a bumper rush, you're gonna get 2-4, and then you have to get 2 more to get the 6 energy is so high. It should be like 4 or 5, I think. But yeah, the best thing to do this with is just get a lot of energy production, a lot of feed production, and then just rush the game. Maybe get a bumper or some plant production to go with it. And yeah, Rim Shutter only goes with Jovian. I know Jovian is like not like you're usually doing engine Jovian when you do Jovian. But yeah, this everyone knows this is just like you see 3 Jovian tags, that player's going Jovian. So yeah. Anyway, that's it for my video. Hope you enjoyed it. Leave a comment below with your thoughts and let me know what other videos you'd like to see me work on. See you next time.